you make me look bad now, that just makes you look horrible.
It does.
You got to always be conscientious of the energies you set forth. You know, it's the thing about agriculture before we get on our topic today. A lot of times it's exciting. I want to start this ag business. I got all these great ideas. I got all these plants I've been reading in a book, Googling. You have to look at your climate. You have to be realistic with your climate. A lot of the farmers that I run into, I work in Kentucky. Let's be honest. The demographics, 80% of the population in Kentucky is non-black. So if I'm a farmer in a rural area, the majority of black or people of color in the state of Kentucky live in your Louisville, your Lexington, your Frankfort, and your more urban areas. So realistically, I don't want to compromise my business. And this got nothing to do with hate or racism. It has to do with practicality of business. So yeah, there's a definite need of more black people being involved in agriculture. But if I realize I'm in the middle of rural America, and right now the few products that I can sell these are from my white neighbors. These are from my white customers who are, I'm not going to say generous. It ain't charity. I have a good product, and I realize the demographic of who's buying my product. I realize 75, 80% of who's buying my product are non-black people. That's not good. That's not bad. Money doesn't have a color. If I'm selling you a good product, great. When we think in the broader scheme, when we're trying to address our representation within agriculture, at what point are we able to galvanize, the black dollar, black consumer habits around specifically supporting black farmers? Like I said, I don't know how I would react if I had family land. This is a legacy that I'm working on. And, I'm seeing myself getting decimated. I'm seeing my land getting taken. I'm seeing all of these shady things, and I don't have nobody to protect me. To try to reach out publicly and get some protection, to get some cooperation, it will make it look like I'm being pro-black. It will make it look like I'm being radical. Isolation is fatal. What is that? Rule 18 of 48 Laws of Power. Isolation is fatal. And so when you think about the plight of many, I'm not going to say all, but many of the black farmers, like we said the other day, the average annual earnings of black farmers, this is 79%, is under $10,000 a year.
That's horrible.
That's annually. I'm averaging my farm operation. We know you can get upwards of 50, 60,000 in 1 acre, right? And so for my income, for 79% of black farmers to be less than 10,000, I think that says a lot, not about the farmer. These are people that understand their craft. They understand their trade. They understand the mission of, hey, I produce. I'm a maker. I make things happen. I make things come out of the ground. But, who of us is in control of a market that buys? I can't go in front of Kroger or Costco and say, hey, y'all need to buy these radishes from this person who planted them over there. It's going to be based on shelf placement, who had the dollars to market it, who had the influence to be able to be on the prime shelf. Because when you get into the dynamics of a grocery store, for example, placement is key. You might have great radishes, but if my radishes are on eye level, when you're pushing your cart around, that's going to make all the difference in the world how many radishes I'm going to sell. When we put this on a broader perspective and why B1AG is important, you'd be amazed. I know just during my path how many people see, bringing agriculture up as somehow radical within the black community. It's radical. Why you have to make it a black thing? Black people eat. Red people eat. Orange people eat. Purple people eat. And if you're 1.4% of the people that produce food and 100% of you eat, there lies to me an opportunity. There lies me the opportunity. I was listening to a show the other day, and they were talking about this concept of separatism. Let me not try to be Nostradamus. We produce 1.4% of the food. And so Black America said tomorrow, we're not dealing with another ethnicity of people. We're only dealing with black folk. I'm not talking to another white person, Asian person, Mexican. We would go hungry in a month. This is not disparaging black people. This is logistically speaking. How many of us have a so-called black store to go to? Think about the lessons of Killer Mike. How many of us, we take wheat for granted. There's not a lot of black people to grow wheat. Another statistic, only 1% of black farmers earn more than $1 million in a year. This is in North America, only 1%. 79% earns less than 10,000. Only 1% earns over $1 million.
You know
We
what?
think about our ag tech conversations. I ain't cutting you off, man. I'm on one this morning.
Yeah, I know. But some kind of way, we're live now. We're actually live already. Sorry, B1AG, y'all got a behind the scenes look at conversations me and Farmer Brown and C have all the time about agriculture. But with this being just paying homage to uh Black History Month, today we would like to acknowledge and salute major Black contributors to agriculture, because we have made a lot of contributions to all sectors of society, and with B1AG, uh, we are dedicated to bringing you informative, enlightening conversations in regard to agriculture, and especially as it relates to us and our community. Black agricultural production, education, marketing, nutrition, economics, all for the Black family and Black community, but for society overall as well. Now, one of the first uh, major contributors that we're going to discuss today, is going to be in regards to seed planters, and that would be Hennry Blair. Now, Hennry Blair was born a free man. He was actually born a free man in 1807, and was the second African American to be issued. He was actually only the second African American to be issued a United States patent. Now he successfully patented two inventions: a corn planter and a cotton planter. The corn planter had a compartment which held and dropped the seeds into the ground, and rakes which followed to cover them with soil. The cotton planter was horse-drawn and had two shovel-like attachments that divided the soil. Behind it, he put a cylinder-shaped wheel that dropped the seeds into the newly turned ground. Both of his inventions greatly increased the efficiency of the farm by limiting labor and time, which is very critical in having a successful farm operation. Is being efficient with your labor and time, because that labor and time, those are the most expensive inputs into any kind of farm operation. Often we always think of something being expensive as a monetary value, but money and time and labor is definitely the most valuable thing that we have to offer and that we have at our disposal. So Farmer Brown, let's go ahead. I know they got a preview of some conversations, but let's talk about planting seeds, especially with Hennry Clark, and let's provide them this daily bread.
And so I think about when I was doing my research at Kentucky State University. And so I went through a stage where we were seeding by hand, plots by hand. And then I saw how much more convenient it was to do it with the seeder. So when we're applying this to larger plots of land, I mean, it saves time. What did they say? Time is money. It saves your back. When you're going into an ag operation, you want to factor in everything that's going to affect the long-term sustainability of your enterprise. If it's going to be labor intensive, meaning I'm going to have to use my body a lot, then it goes down to this word ergonomics. How we bend. I know a lot of times, I used to work in a sunroof factory, and they always talked about our wrist, ergonomics, because, you're constantly doing a certain movement. So when you're thinking about farm work, you want to take this under consideration. If I know 50 days out of the year, it's going to require a lot of movement from me, then you want to be conscientious. Now, if I have a piece of technology or a piece of equipment that's going to seed for me, I can, that's a few thousand bends on my back that I don't have to make. This few thousand bends on my back that I don't have to make seeding will give me X amount of bins for something else that will require me to bend, so to speak. But these are, you think about our ancestors when we talk about slavery and cotton. The Henry Blair cotton seeder, I mean, obviously this was after slavery, but that made that operation a lot more physically efficient, a lot more economically efficient. You didn't need as many people now because I have a seeder. Some of these have up to 12 different areas where you're able to seed, 12 different slots where you're inserting your seeds in the ground. And so this is, we'll say 2 or 3 different people that you don't have to have doing that specific task because you have a machine that does it. And so Henry Blair, I imagine this came out of, okay, I don't like to keep bending down like this. You know, there's got to be a better way to get these seeds lined up evenly. This isn't so big of a plot of land where I actually need a tractor. And so you actually have manual seeders as well. And you know, obviously it has a commercial value when you're talking about a 1,000-acre plot where you're wanting to seed. And so these are also implements that could be put on a tractor as well. So, I mean, it's a fundamental discovery or fundamental creation in agriculture, planters.
Our second look at our major contributors to agriculture from melanated folk. We have to probably, we're going to look at one of the probably most famous, what people know most about, and that's George Washington Carver. Now, one of the negative byproducts of slavery and the cotton industry is that cotton is a nitrogen depleting product to the soil. It strips the soil of the nitrogen, which is one of the main ingredients that helps things grow in the soil. So George Washington Carver, what he's most famous for is the peanut. Now, it's not just the fact that he just innovated on the peanut. It's the fact that the peanut is a nitrogen infusing product to the soil. It actually brings nitrogen back to the soil. So, and that was, and also crop rotations, you know, that helped ease the depletion of the soil. It regenerated the soil and made it useful. And it just helps you grow more in the long run and help sustain the soil. So Farmer Brown, what do you got to say about George Washington Carver and his soil regeneration and also crop rotation?
You know, once again, agriculture leads to a lot of analogies and metaphors. And so obviously soil regeneration is very important if you want a successful operation. You can have 1,000,000 acres of dirt. If it has no nutrients, it's not going to yield any plants. And so with George Washington using the peanut, using the soybean, he discovered a way to enrich the soil. So if you want to be literal or metaphorical, it's going to take that ingenuity, that black ingenuity of identifying a problem. Right now, one of the problems when we're thinking specifically about soil is a lot of our soils have chemicals in them, whether it's herbicides, whether it's pesticides. These are necessary when you're doing a large scale. Like if I have 200 acres of, say, wheat or sorghum or something, it's not feasible to have a whole bunch of people out here in the field. I mean, it will burn them out. As the primary operator, I wouldn't have the capital to pay you to do this. And so if there's a machine that exists that does this, it would help me. And so when we're thinking about soil regeneration, we have to make up for all of those chemicals that were used to do these operations to get rid of the weeds. And we think about, we keep referring to Bill Gates because he got the 240,000 acres of the best farmland in America. Best farmland will be classified as this is good soil. You know, what does good soil means? It means it doesn't have all of these extra inputs. Your like I said, your fertilizer, your herbicides, whatever chemicals that will keep you from having an organic operation. And the thing with soil, I mean, we can say these cute words around about soil regeneration, but when it comes to nature, it has a cycle. And so the more you've poisoned something, rationally speaking, the longer it's going to take for it to regenerate. George Washington Carver, his ingenuity, found a plant, a natural existing organism that enhanced this process of regeneration. And so when we think whether we're talking about communities or the actual farms, this is the type of innovation we're going to need when we think about your Chicago's, your New York's, these Detroit. We have these large areas of these distressed properties that have construction waste, some of the waste from the households. You know, you have leakage, all sorts of chemicals in these soils. And so the same way we want to regenerate the rural agricultural soil, you want to do this in urban areas as well. Obviously, this hadn't been fixed. We haven't had the George Washington Carver of urban gardens yet that can figure out now how can we in a 2-3 year span of time regenerate these soils in these urban areas that have been contaminated. The best scientist hasn't figured that out yet. And so I think that's a formidable goal to, you know, plant this seed with our youth. Hey, this is a problem. This is a thing. If you figure this thing out, this is the yield. This is how valuable it is. So putting it into context, so regenerating the soil.
And at the end of the day, you know, when you are able to regenerate the soil, it increases the soil's productive capacity. It actually gave Southern farmers another crop to produce and sell outside of cotton, which helped them to diversify the market. And that's always a great plus. Now, another great innovator in agriculture from blacks is Frederick McKinley Jones, and he actually developed the refrigerated truck. And the refrigerated truck was one of the most important inventions to modern agriculture. You know, he patented his refrigeration system in 1940 and became co-owner of the company Thermo King, from which that's where he sold his invention. Now, the refrigerated truck allowed us to transport this food across a longer distance and also to keep the food fresh. You know, the thing with food is, you know, it has a short shelf life. You know, produce has a short shelf life, and having refrigerated trucks helped extend that shelf life so we can get the food to more people. You know, he patented his refrigeration system in 1940 and became. So, Farmer Brown, could you explain the importance of having refrigerated trucks and having a system like that in place, especially when you're talking about building and sustaining a local food economy?
If you think a few discussions back, we were talking about it was Napoleon's ability to master refrigeration technology at that time. Obviously, there weren't trucks or vehicles. These were horses. These were carriages. But because he was able to master the concept of refrigeration, storing his food, he was able to feed his soldiers longer. And so one of his strategies of war was, hey, I can wear you out. We're going to get into winter. You don't have a means of saving your food. Or in the heat, you don't have a means of cooling your food. And so if I can keep my soldiers maneuvering, I can feed them. And so that, you know, that's on a war general sense, right? So when we're talking about applying that to the community, it's everything. And I will add a caveat that, you know, once again, we become enslaved to that which we let do the work that we're supposed to do. Refrigeration made possible, I can grow these apples in rural Georgia. You know, I don't want them to freeze, or greens, you know, something greens that, you know, you obviously want to get them to where they're going as quick as possible. I can now get this to Atlanta, Georgia from, say, Savannah, because I have a refrigerated truck. It's not going to rot. Just in case it needs a few days, you know, maybe I'm taking them from Georgia up to Indiana. I'm going to need a few days. This refrigeration made it possible. Once again, this expanded markets. Now I have a mechanism where I can send my product farther. If you look at the vaccines right now, one of the big logistical problems is, hey, these need to be stored at 30 degrees. And so here in 20 some degrees, I don't know the exact, but that's one of the logistical problems that even in 2020, with all the technological knowledge, hey, you know, this is the thing. We need this product to get from point A to point B. It has to maintain this temperature. To maintain this temperature on a moving object, whether it's a plane, whether it's a truck, you know, there's going to be X amount of energy input necessary. Not only is the energy going into the fuel that's fueling this vehicle to move forward, the plane to fly, I got to have something fueling this box this trailer, this refrigerated trailer that contains this product. All of this turns into this concept of sustainability. Is it sustainable to kill a whole bunch of plants, to drain a whole bunch of energy just to freeze a few, what we'll say, pounds of green, so to speak? These are the areas of innovation. Is there I tend to study what did the ancients understand? Ancient people ate, and we can attest to that because we're here today, meaning they survived. So what did they know about food storage? Is it our technology or application of the technology that drove this? But we understand storage is a big part of keeping your food. If we had to limit our food to, okay, I have to eat it as soon as I catch it, a lot of us will starve. And so being able to store it and then having a means to transport it at a controllable temperature is everything within our food system.
And it's amazing how Frederick Jones's invention, it was installed in trucks, boats, planes, boxcars, and improved the worldwide trade. Because of our Elder Jones, his invention, fresh seasonal produce can be enjoyed throughout the year. Other concepts such as frozen food, supermarkets, and container shipping were all derived from the work of Frederick McKinley Jones. So his work is very important and it's still being enjoyed and appreciated now.
And this is STEM. This is the essence of STEM: science, technology, engineering, and math. It represents the essence of it. The point I was making about the COVID vaccine, this is a problem in 2021 that hasn't been solved. The entrepreneur meets, I'm kind of late in my journey, right? But if I was a fifth grader, sixth grader, and I realized, here's an important time in the country, and here's the thing that's needed to be distributed to people, and these are the dynamics that are making this not go as efficiently as possible. Now, if I dedicate the next 7 years of my life, say if I'm a fifth grader, by the time I go to college, I would have already had an idea of what scholarship I want. I know which direction I want to do my research. Storage. But we have to introduce these concepts in a practical sense to our youth, because their minds are going to turn into the Frederick McKinley Jones. He was a kid at one time that realized that there was a problem, whether through education or just life experience. He figured out, add this, and this, and I can address this. As a community, we have to revalue these innovations, because today we can get patents. Today we can no, you're going to pay me for this.
Right.
And so we need to match that power as a community we have today with the need to actually produce and invent and create.
Okay. Now we're going to address one more of our elders and saluting one more of our elders today. But this is something we will be doing throughout the month, celebrating Black History Month and acknowledging the contributions and accolades and forward movement, of Blacks within the field of agriculture. And that's farming cooperatives with Booker T. Washington. Now, Booker T. Washington, he started a lot of farming cooperatives, which were able to increase opportunities, land ownership, agricultural education, and living conditions for Black farmers, despite the setbacks from systematic discrimination. Now, I'm a firm believer that agriculture and farming is a way for us to achieve socioeconomic freedom, because it's not like it's a grand new idea. It's because agriculture has been used before to achieve socioeconomic freedom. And I think that is something that we've forgotten, and we need to turn back and look to as far as the work that our elders have done to help us have a better life in this country, despite, having racial disparities and systematic racism. At the end of the day, we've been able to turn to agriculture and create a greener life for ourselves. And now with farming cooperatives, he would actually go out into the community and teach people how to farm, teach them how to have their gardens. He would go out and show them physically This is the tools, these are what you need, and this is how you do this. And that's really at the essence of the work that I've seen, and helped with Farmer Brown to do with his Fresh Shots program and a lot of other initiatives, starting community gardens and things like that. It's just continuing the work of people like Booker T. Washington. Well, Farmer Brown, what do you have to say to tell the people about farming cooperatives for those that don't quite understand, exactly what a farming cooperative is?
Okay, this is going to be a long answer. This is such a great opportunity to tell you a very real story. And so, Bonafide Circle, me, Mino, and Vern. So back in '95, when we formed our group, we used to go to Wesley United Methodist Church. They'd tell my mom, yeah, we'll go to church if we can come stay all night and record. And so that was our agreement. We walk up to church on Sunday mornings and, we come and record in my basement. But we met this black lawyer named Bill Green. He and his wife went to Wesley United Methodist. This is in Lexington. And he took an interest in us. This was a young black dude. I want to say Mr. Bill was from Louisville. We had never met a black lawyer before in our life. And at first, our group name was Dark Side Mafia. It was Dark Side Mafia. And it was Bill Green that said, now, why y'all want to be Dark Side? And so that's why we changed it to Bonafide Circle, which is what you see tatted, right? And so fast forward, I remember he had a drop top Beamer. Like, we had never rode in one of those. Okay. And he took us around to Louisville. But actually that was our first show too. He had some of the UK players at that time, J. Suma Sims. I remember Montel Jordan's wife, that was his manager. She was there. Right. This was at his house. They stayed in a nice neighborhood, right? And so that was our first performance. We did a little cheesy song that we did, but they was very inspirational and like, man, these are black people. Like, they're not in the hood. They're not in a struggle situation. Like, they're cool. And so that really changed our mindset early in the game. This is 95. Fast forward, it was Christmas of 97. Mr. Bill gave me, Mino, and Vernon 3 books. I'm going to tell you how I have to tell this story because you brought up Booker T. He gave us each 3 books for Christmas. We at Bryan Station, we used to meet in the library every morning, but he gave us 3 books. He said, you got to read them all the way through. You got to read them all the way through. The book I got was Booker T. Washington's Up from Slavery. I remember mine. I forget which book him and Vernon got. They both got different books, but I remember Mino came to the library. He's like, bro, he put $20 in here. Did you have $20 in yours? Me, I'm trying to be moral oral. I'm going to be honest. Like, I'll read it. But I opened it and wow, he put $20. And so what the brother did was, I want you to read this. And inside of this was a treasure. And so truth be told, I don't know if Mr. Bill knows this. I found the $20, but I read the book. Bruh, that sent my life in a whole different direction when I read that story, Up from Slavery. It talked about how Booker T. Washington, he was a janitor at a time. He came from a slave condition. He walked, I don't have the exact numbers. I'm talking about hundreds of miles to be educated. Educated in the sense, no, I'm not going to college to turn up, swag out. Like, no, I'm going to learn something because I want to serve my community. I realized that I can't, depend on anybody else other than myself and my community to get us out of this situation. And anybody that knows Booker T. Washington's legacy, he was one of the most influential black people nationally. This is during the time when, the racial tension was at a high. But because he came to the table with an idea, my idea wasn't, hey, man, can you help me? It was like, hey, this is what I do. I see you got a problem. And I mean, you can pay me for this or you don't. And we see this became one of our legends, right? There's other stories with Booker T. Washington, but the point is it was through agriculture and cooperative extension. I work professionally in cooperative extension now. This is long before I even knew what the word was. That was one of his avenues of teaching rural black families. They would have caravans. He's like, okay, these black folks in these rural communities can't necessarily come to Tuskegee to learn about this agriculture, these new innovations, these new programs. So I'm going to come up with a creative, and this is Booker T. Washington, nothing new under the sun. So I'm going to come up with a creative way to take this information to the people that need it. That is the history of your 1890s land grant institutions. That is how it's supposed to work. Once again, we've become enslaved to computers where I can just email you. I don't got to come out to your farm and smell it, shake your hand, see what your real situation. And so that it's a gift and a curse then that we see that we're so separated from actually face to face, really innovating, sharing information, that this is a job. This becomes opportunity. So to answer your question about farming cooperatives, many hands make light work. Co-op, million black shovels in the dirt. Grow up.
Yes, sir.
Get it from the ground. Do what you do. Group economics. I mean, Susu. This is historic. The concept is when you're working in a cooperative, worker owner cooperatives, for example, you control your salary. You control what's going in. You control profit. You control where the extra funds go in. And this basically, these are different individuals that have, hey, I'm real good at tilling. Like there's nobody in the world that can till more effectively and efficient than me. I'm proven. Hey, I'm good at finances. You put me out in the field, I'll do horrible. But when it comes to finances, I'll flip it, flip it, flip it, flip it. Hey, I'm good at running my mouth. And y'all want, I'm not going to touch the ground. I'm really not good at touching the money, but I can convince 1,000 people to buy this thing that we cooperatively come together and create. This was actually the model that will build your Tulsa. These black towns is the model of, hey, y'all, you know what? There's not no check that's going to come. We're not going to get a stimulus check. Nobody's going to make it rain on us. So it comes to a thing of let's reevaluate our value to each other. Maybe I don't have a $1 million worth of fiat to give to you, but hey, bro, I can give you 40 hours of my life over the next 6 months to this effort of growing X amount of this produce. I can give, because I give the what we'll call the plantation. I give them 40 hours a week, right? Being funny, but not. And so the thing is, take what you do just as seriously as what you give wherever we work at. It's not a bad thing. The concept is valuation. And when we're, as within a community, we're able to evaluate ourselves. This cooperative model becomes the ultimate fix to our economic problems. It's the ultimate fix. There's no way around people not having to work together to address our social and economic issues. Many hands make light work. But, there's order of operations. I learned that in 5th grade, order of operations. When you're wanting to do something scientific, specific that you can repeat over and over, there's an order of these operations. And all of these great innovations, Booker T. Washington came up in a time where black folks didn't have a choice. Either you sink or you swim. Either you figure out something to do or you're going to have to run right back to that plantation. And so fortunately, a lot of our ancestors like, you know what? I'm swimming. This brother then came through here with this cart from this Tuskegee institution. I'm at all these new farm ways that I can grow things, all these new forms of equipment. And then they work together within these communities and cooperatives. Hey, sister so-and-so, I can't really pay you no money right now, but you sure do make them pies and sandwiches. And I got a team of brothers down here that's going to be out in this field for X amount of days out of the year. Now, out of this field that we're working on, we can make sure that your restaurant is sourced all year round. You ain't even got to pay us what you normally go, if you had the luxury of shopping and getting wholesale from the white stores. We can make sure that you're going to get what you need to make your store runs. And in turn, I need to know that I can, if I'm the primary operator, I need to make sure I can feed my people that's working as well as myself. And so it's being able to create intrinsic value. And the benefit we have today that Booker T. Washington didn't have, he didn't have social media. His connections, his education were based on real people. He had publications he put out, but he couldn't just tweet, type a couple of letters and literally hundreds of thousands of people see what he said. That's an advantage we have today. Booker T. Washington didn't have hip hop that was like the voice of music around the world that influences whether, no matter how strong you are, you're influenced by hip hop. If your head moves, if you find you got a little bit more rhythm over the last few years, it's because hip hop, we're inundated with hip hop. And so we're in a strange opportunity where we can drive what is important specifically for the B1 community, but secondarily for the whole planet. Because as we move our head, as we decide this is the wave, this is what we're going to do, then everything else by nature is going to come along. But we internally, honestly have to have that as a value. This is why B1AG, this is why the Black Boss Network is so important. This is one pixel in a much broader picture of opportunities. But cooperatives are unavoidable. That's a long answer, isn't it?
But it's a truthful answer, and that's what we want to get to the root. So, it might be a long answer, but as long as we get to the root, there's no problem at all.
Read the book. There's a treasure in the book, but read the book.
In that book, Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington, you know, definitely one of our great elders in agriculture, but also in just in helping us gain freedom, you know, true freedom, not symbolic freedom, but true freedom, especially facing what he had to face, you know, with real slavery. And, you know, we're still facing a lot of the same problems, but they were definitely more concentrated, more prevalent, and more identifiable during his day. Hey, man, this is B1AG. You know, we try to bring you this daily bread. We want you to, you know, hopefully plant some seeds and have a harvest, because we need a harvest. You know, everyone has to eat. And here at B1AG, we really believe that, you know, if you really want to know something,
Learn how to grow something.
So until tomorrow, I hope y'all come back. We have another enlightening discussion about agriculture, especially as it affects our community. Until then, peace out and watch what you eat.